you have 50-50 human and digital workers. I'm here as the CEO and founder of Asymbl. So I have to ask you right off the bat, how do you approach that in a company?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We're actually 60% digital now.
60%.
It's hard to keep up with. We used to count them and like publicly talk about how many we have. No, it's too many. You know, for us, like we've really always thought about it as labor and as a worker. So when we started with our first digital worker, which was the SDR agent from Salesforce, we were really intentional about how do we roll this out? How do we think about it? So we created a job description, not just a list of tasks to be done, but an actual job description. We thought about its motivation for success. We thought about what's a good outcome? Like, what do we want from this? The same exact way that you would do if you're going to hire a human employee. And then we named it. And naming it might sound silly and people might not really understand why. For us, though, it was the magical moment. So we named it Theodore Frank. We call it Teddy when it's doing a really good job. It's Theodore when he's being a little naughty. And then it's Theodore Frank when he's being very naughty. And we did that because we always get that reaction from our team. Like it's just kind of funny, it's cute, but you could relate to it. But we're also setting the stage of sometimes it's gonna work really well. Sometimes it's gonna have off days. Sometimes it's gonna have really bad days. We have to coach it, we have to manage it. And the more and more we coached and managed, the better Teddy got. So now we have like Super Teddy. But he was our first, and then we did a recruiting one. So our business in early 2025 was going through a huge growth spot. So Teddy was managing a bunch of inbound leads. He manages about 1,000. Yeah, about 1,000 leads. We also, though, we had to hire a lot of humans to fulfill contracts with clients. So we needed to hire about 100 people in about 100 days. So we did that with one recruiter and one digital recruiter, and it worked. And not only did we get all the people hired, we hired about 116 people. They all stayed. So
that's the key. Like it's one thing to staff, it's another to retain. And I was
exactly.
I was going to ask you that because that's really impressive. And because I think you mentioned somewhere about judgment. How do you get agents to have judgment?
Yeah, I mean, it's more so the human having the judgment, but then with the agent, I always have a hard time calling an agent because we always call it a digital worker. Well, we call them digital workers, and the reason why we call them digital workers is the actual concept of a job and the work to be done. And inside of a digital worker, we have a lot of agents that make it up. So I have one that's called Bradley. Bradley is an intelligence analyst, and basically every week, Bradley will run for me a CEO briefing. So he'll pull data from finance, from accounting, from sales, from marketing, from service, for everywhere in the company. And he'll come back and produce a 10 to 15 page report that's charts and graphs and all the data, but then he narrates it as well. And then I coach him every week. You know, I'm concerned about cash flow this week, or I'm this or that or whatever. And Bradley and I have a conversation, and he produces this report that I then share with the rest of the leadership team. Bradley has about at least 50 agents inside of him. So it's the work that Bradley's doing that we're actually naming more so than the agent.
And I like how you use the word orchestration in your description, right? Because I see that in your background, you were like in recruiting, you understand the pain point. And it is really now, especially as we go into the next phase of work, really a lot of that word, because I come from a DevOps background. So when I hear orchestration, I just hear like, but it's true. It's kind of all that. And one thing I found really interesting is that your entire workflow runs on Slack with an integration of Salesforce, which I find so intuitive also in the way you work. How does that work? Can you walk me through some of that?
I mean, Slack's always been our operating system. So in 2024, we actually had a contest with all of our humans at the time, like how can we use Slack in innovative ways? And they actually created new ways of working so we could create workflows and processes and all of that for us to actually operate in the system where everyone communicates. And that changed radically how we approached it because it was no longer just a communication system. Wait, this is where we actually work. Like this is where things get done. And then what's been really cool is over the years seeing the innovation that Salesforce has rolled out, especially now with how much you can access Salesforce directly in Slack and producing Tableau charts and reports and all of the other things. It really is the centralized hub, and we're super excited about Headless 360 and being able to surface everywhere. So it just keeps getting better and better. But a couple of years ago, I told my team, I'm like, Slack is going to be the UI that we all work from. And the pause or disbelief back then was like, how? I'm like, because we're no longer going to have to enter data into fields. We're going to have conversations, and the Slack is going to understand what to do with that conversation to execute the workflow.
Right.
And that's where we're at.
That's incredible. And I know we're here at Agentforce World Tour New York. What are some of the features that Salesforce specifically, or what are some advice you would give to companies trying to do this, utilizing Slack and Salesforce?
The way that we got started with digital labor and agents, which ties to all of this together, is picking one job to be done, picking one outcome you're looking for. We started with sales because we had the demand in sales, and then we flipped to recruiting after that. Really understanding what you want to deliver. And then once you understand that, then you take a step back and say, okay, what's the best platform? What's the best system to actually execute on this? But then how do we operate with it? How do we work with it? This is why we use the term workforce orchestration, because we think about it as a conductor in a symphony, right? So you have all of these musicians, you have all of these different instruments, they're all trying to play the same tune. How do you actually get that all to work? Like, when does the harp kick in and when does the trumpet kick in and all that? So you've got to figure out how to orchestrate it all together. And for us, that platform became Slack, especially with Salesforce tied to it. The second part of that is just one of the things that kept me up at night early on was, how do I trust this? How do I make sure that this isn't going rogue? How do I make sure we don't have one of these digital workers that's just going to delete everything and do all the crazy stuff that you hear? So putting it behind a trust layer, putting behind a process that you can actually know, like, wait, there's real meat on the bone here, versus some of the frontier things that we're seeing. And we're big fans of like Anthropic and all of that, but putting it behind proven enterprise grade platform was so foundational for us. We announced today a relationship with MuleSoft for Agent Fabric to orchestrate, to observe, to really understand what's happening. Otherwise, it can be terrifying.
Yeah. And I love how you also, the way you're also approaching it and calling it more like something to count as a human versus an IT operation. How does mindset really play a role in all this?
It's the adoption, right? So I can have the biggest vision, and if you ask anyone on my staff, we have big visions, and one of the words that is always around is pace. But one of the words that's also around is enablement. And with as fast as we've grown on the digital workforce side, our biggest challenge internally is the enablement of the human population of our workforce to keep up with that. So looking at how do you consistently get people to understand it so they can adopt it, so they can believe it's real, so they can test it and they can challenge it here or challenge it there, but then have proven success. And when you start to do that, then you can start to drive adoption. And when you start to drive adoption and belief, we also talk with clients like, because we help clients set all this up as well. A client will come to us saying, we want a proof of concept for X, and we don't do proof of concepts. We'll do a validation of belief. I'll do a project with you to prove to you that you can believe this will actually do the job you want it to do. Every single time we've done that for a client, we've always extended it and helped them roll out a bunch of digital workers.
You had this quote, I think at Fast Company, where you were saying that challenge is not just talent of AI engineering necessarily, but also
it's a workforce problem.
What are those skill sets? How would you define those, as we probably need more of those right now?
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's a lot of conversation about junior and mid-level roles disappearing and what happens there and all of that. The way that we look at this is, what this really is understanding the outcome that you're trying to deliver for and why you need that outcome. And senior leadership typically can dial that in because they have the experience to say, this is what we need and this is why. Junior level, still building that muscle to understand, okay, how does this impact the broader company? Why is this a good thing? What we've seen by rolling out digital workers and then having humans manage them, and our best managers are not the engineers. They're good managers, but our best managers are the non-technical people that actually can understand really what the outcome of a job needs to be. So for example, Mitch. So Mitch started with us as an SDR. He was our sole SDR when we rolled out Teddy. So Teddy, the digital. So Mitch was managing the digital SDR, and back then we were really trying to figure out how do we get to success. And then we started to unlock it piece by piece, and all of a sudden Teddy was doing phenomenal and Mitch was managing them, or it. So what happened was Teddy would start to write emails. Mitch would be reading those emails and correcting and coaching and all of that. Then one day you started to see Teddy writing really incredible emails that Mitch is like, wow, this is really good. I wouldn't have thought about it this way. So he kept managing him and managing and managing. Finally, there was an opportunity for Mitch to move into an account executive role. And all the work that he did with Teddy taught him how to really understand deeply our product and our services and who we are. So Mitch's first month, I think he closed like 11 deals.
Wow.
Because he had that deep understanding. So the ability for humans to learn from these workers, and these digital workers, to be trained by these humans is very symbiotic. So I look at this as, how do I create a workforce of junior, mid, and senior level folks that can actually coach and manage these digital workers? Because then they'll help each other grow, and all of a sudden you're scaling at a rate that we're scaling at, which is incredible.
Because you're, I think, 10x, you're functioning at least 10x of what your size is. How big is the company currently?
So we're 170 humans, 200 digital workers. So we've grown about 53x since we started, and there's no slowing down. So now it's a matter of, again, like I was saying, keeping up with our digital workforce is growing so fast and producing so much results. Like last year, we produced $5 million in productivity impact. This year, we're easily going to do 13 million, if not higher. For a company our size, that is a massive number. So again, it goes back to, how do we keep the humans engaged, enabled, understanding it, and how do we help them become better managers? Yeah. And it's working. It's fun.
And I think when you were giving advice advice as well about how to get started. A lot of it is also like understanding the problem. I know your background, we could walk through a little bit on that.
Yeah, this is my fourth company. So as much as I started in recruiting, which was great, my first job was in banking. So I started as a bank teller, which is always a fun story when I get pushback from folks about, this is going to disrupt things and all of that. I was like, my very first job was a bank teller. When's the last time you saw a human bank teller? When's the last time you've gone to the bank? I don't know the last time I even went to the ATM. So technology evolves, the world evolves. It's what you do with that knowledge and skill that helps you go with it. So did banking, stumbled into staffing, ran different staffing businesses, built my first staffing and recruiting technology on Salesforce starting in 2009, scaled that globally, 9th fastest growing software company in America in 17. We had 8 offices internationally. And that's part of what taught me what I'm doing now, because I had to, back then, actually set up an entity, figure out the workforce, figure out how to manage the workforce, figure out how to motivate the workforce to drive an outcome that we wanted to drive. Eventually sold that business, launched a couple other businesses. Now Asymbl's been around since January of 2023. But that understanding of diversity and workforce and motivation of that workforce is foundational to why I think about AI and agents as digital workers and as employees and not just pieces of technology.
I think when I was even looking at your site, there was a lot of the phrase of the and, human and digital, or, I think is so core to the message. And I'm so grateful for your time today and for sitting down with me at Agentforce. And thank you again.
Thank you.